All right, let's get right into it. We hear about big data breaches all the time, right? But what we don't often talk about is what happens after a hacker gets in. That's what we're going to break down today, the attacker's post-exploitation playbook.
So picture this. A hacker slips past your firewall, they use some clever exploit, and boom, they're inside a machine on your network. You might think, well, that's it, game over. That's what most people assume, but honestly, it couldn't be more wrong.
You see, for the attacker, getting that first little foothold isn't the victory lap. Not even close. It's the starting gun. The real work, the actual mission to get what they came for, is only just getting started.
This whole stage of the attack has a name: post-exploitation. And it's not just one single action. It's a very careful, methodical campaign with some really clear goals. So let's look at what an attacker is really trying to do once they're inside.
When you strip it all down, it's really about three things. First, they've got to find and pull out valuable information. That's the whole point, right? The prize. Second, they need to get the highest level of privileges they possibly can. We're talking administrator or root access, the keys to the kingdom. And third, and this one's crucial, they want to maintain long-term control to make sure they can get back in whenever they feel like it.
So where do they even begin? Well, imagine a burglar just picked the lock on your back door. They don't just go running through the house, grabbing stuff randomly. No way. They stop, they listen, they start building a mental map of the layout. An attacker does the exact same thing, but their house is your network. It's called internal reconnaissance.
And it's a really systematic process. First, they enumerate. That just means they start taking inventory. Who's on this network? What computers are here? What's the domain? Then they locate internal services to see what software is running. After that, they assess their own position. What can I actually see from where I am right now? And finally, they start trying to obtain juicy files, hunting for things like password stores or config files that'll give them their next entry point. Okay, so once they have a good map of the digital territory, the next logical step is to get the keys to every single room. And in the digital world, that means stealing credentials so they can escalate their privileges and get more and more power. But here's the thing. Passwords aren't just lying around in plain text.
Instead, your computer stores passwords as something called a hash. The best way to think of it is like a unique digital fingerprint for your password. It's a one-way street. It's super easy to turn a password into a hash, but it's designed to be practically impossible to turn that hash back into the original password.
So what does a hacker do? They fire up incredibly powerful tools like Hashcat to crack these hashes. And the process is actually pretty straightforward. First, the tool makes a guess, something like password 01. Second, it runs that guess through the exact same hashing algorithm. And third, it compares its new hash to the one it stole. If they match, bingo, they found the password. And they do this millions, sometimes billions of times per second. But here's where it gets really wild. In a lot of networks, attackers don't even need the password itself. They can just steal the digital fingerprint, that hash, and pass that to other computers to log in. It's an attack called pass the hash. They can also steal digital tickets that grant temporary access, which is called pass the ticket. And if they hit the absolute jackpot, they can forge something called a golden ticket, which gives them God mode access to pretty much everything, forever. This is exactly what makes tools like Mimikatz so incredibly dangerous.
Now, all this credential stealing is in service of one thing: privilege escalation. And it comes in two main flavors. You've got vertical escalation. That's the classic move, right? Going from a normal user up to an all-powerful administrator on one machine. Then there's horizontal escalation, which is more about moving sideways, using one person's account to hop over to another person's account with similar permissions, just to get access to different stuff.
And believe me, they have a deep bag of tricks for this. On Windows, they might use something called token impersonation. Think of it like finding a janitor's keycard and using it to walk into restricted areas. On Linux, a really common trick is finding a misconfigured program that lets a regular user run commands as the root user, which is the ultimate power. It basically hands them the keys to the entire system on a silver platter.
So, our attacker has escalated their privileges. They're powerful now. What's next on the checklist? Well, now they need to expand their control to other machines on the network. And, just as important, they need to make sure nobody can kick them out. This is where lateral movement and persistence come into play. Let's go back to our burglar one more time. Lateral movement is like moving from the living room to the bedroom to the office, using the access you already have to explore the rest of the house.
Persistence? Well, that's like making a copy of the house key and hiding it under a rock in the garden. That way, you can get back in whenever you want, even if the owner changes the main locks.
Attackers get this persistence in some really clever ways. For example, they might hijack the system's own task scheduler, the thing that runs updates automatically. They'll just add their own malicious task, telling the computer, hey, run my evil code every hour on the hour. It's sneaky because to the system it just looks like another routine job, but it guarantees the attacker's backdoor is always open for business.
Now, you're probably thinking, that's a lot of different techniques to manage. Recon, escalation, persistence, it sounds complicated. And it is, which is why attackers often use a single all-in-one tool that acts like a post-exploitation Swiss Army knife. It's called Meterpreter.
Meterpreter is this incredibly advanced payload that's part of the Metasploit framework. And here's what makes it so slick. When it runs on a victim's machine, it doesn't create some new, obvious process that an admin might spot. Instead, it injects itself into processes that are already running, giving the attacker a powerful command console right inside the compromised system, hiding in plain sight.
And what can you do from this console? Just about anything. The stop-e commands let them browse the file system and mess with the network. The priv commands are built specifically for escalating privileges and even covering their tracks by tampering with evidence. And the best part? They can load special extensions, like one called Kiwi, to do really complex stuff, like dumping every password from the computer's memory with a single command. It's insanely powerful. Okay, so we've walked through the entire playbook, from that initial tiny foothold all the way to total control. So why? Why does understanding all of this actually matter when it comes to defending ourselves? Well, it's pretty simple, really. You cannot defend against an enemy if you don't understand their tactics. It's only by knowing their playbook, step by step, that you can start to see the weak points, the opportunities to interrupt their campaign and shut them down for good. So what are the big takeaways here? First, remember that a breach isn't a single event, it's a campaign. Your defense can't just be a high wall around the perimeter. Second, you have to focus on detecting that internal, lateral movement. An alarm that only goes off at the front door is pretty useless once the burglar's already in the house. And finally, limiting user privileges and segmenting your network are your best friends. They create roadblocks that can stop an attacker dead in their tracks. So I'll leave you with this to think about. Now that you've seen the full playbook, from that first quiet entry to complete domain takeover, how do you think your own defenses, or even just your personal security habits, would actually hold up against it?